Imagine, you are locked inside a 170-meter steel pipe for 4 months. No sun, no sky, no margin for error. 155 souls, nuclear warheads that can erase the world, and only one medic for everyone. There is no day or night here. Food is the only joy, and air is worth its weight in gold. The bunk is still warm from the guy who just got up. Shower, 3 minutes max. And if something goes wrong, you can't scream. The enemy is listening. This is not a movie. This is the real life of American submariners aboard a $4 billion Ohio-class strategic submarine. 120 days submerged, one near-catastrophic accident, and one deadly cat-and-mouse chase. And one question they ask themselves every single day: are we going to make it through today? Subscribe. What follows is nothing but the truth.
Naval Station, Norfolk, Virginia. A lead gray November sky hung low over the pier in 2025 as Lieutenant Alex Harper stood on the weather deck of an Ohio-class nuclear-powered ballistic missile submarine, a $4 billion steel leviathan. The Atlantic wind whipped across his face, carrying the sharp, salty taste of the ocean that would soon become both his prison and his home. Alex, a tall, athletic 28-year-old from a sleepy little town in Ohio where life moved as slowly as the river through the valley, had always dreamed big. Storms at sea, distant shores, heroic deeds. Yet reality hit him like a cold, breaking wave. This was his first operational patrol after graduating from Annapolis, the volunteer force the Submariners spoke of with fierce pride. Only the best choose this life, they said. But inside his chest, fear coiled like a snake around his heart, an ominous premonition as inevitable as the depths themselves. The boat, a 170-meter-long behemoth, felt alive to him. Steam hissed from vents. Deep inside, the nuclear reactor pulsed quietly, ready to carry them silently across the oceans. Captain Martin Reed, a weathered veteran with graying temples etched by countless patrols, stepped closer. His gaze cold and blue as the abyss fixed on Alex. "You sure you're ready for this, son?" he asked in a low, gravelly voice that carried both fatherly concern and unbreakable resolve. Alex nodded, forcing his voice steady. "Yes, sir, ready." Inside, everything churned. Down here, there was no room for error. One faulty valve, one system failure, and the steel would close like the jaws of a shark. They got underway at dawn, the horizon barely blushing pink while the base still slept in fog. The crew, 155 of the Navy's finest, moved to their stations with practiced precision. Alex descended into the boat's steel guts, where the air already carried the smell of metal, oil, and human sweat. When the hatch slammed shut with a dull, final clang, the outside world vanished. Engines growled louder, sirens wailed the dive alarm, and the submarine slipped slowly, inexorably beneath the waves. Alex stood in the narrow passageway gripping a handrail, feeling the pressure build, not just the crushing weight of the sea, but the inner weight of total isolation. The surface disappeared behind a wall of green water, and they entered their cramped underwater universe where every inch was precious. Inside, the boat was a maze of narrow corridors choked with pipes, cables, and valves. The nuclear reactor and propulsion plant took up a full third of the hull. The rest was divided among people, torpedoes, missiles, and equipment. Alex made his way to berthing on the third level, one of 16 compartments that held 9 coffins, as they were called. Narrow racks with bunk beds, privacy curtains that offered only the illusion of solitude, and tiny lockers for personal gear. Chief Petty Officer Jack Morales, a stocky Texan with an anchor tattoo on a thick forearm and an old scar across his knuckles, showed him his spot. "Hot racking, Lieutenant. You share the rack with 2 others. When you crawl in, it's still warm from the last guy. You'll get used to it, or you'll break. No room for the weak down here." Jack gave a crooked grin, but his eyes held understanding. He'd seen plenty of new guys crack in the first week. Alex slid into his coffin, a slot so narrow he could touch the overhead with his fingertips. The curtains shut out the world, but sounds leaked through. The constant drone of blowers, footsteps in the passageway, muffled voices. The thrill of finally being here among the elite, mixed with stunned disbelief. How do these people live for months without sunlight, without sky? The air smelled of metal and sweat. The watch schedule felt like torture, 8 hours on, 16 off for sleep, food, and training. Yet pride burned in every crewman's eyes. They were the elite, volunteers who chose a life in an environment incompatible with human existence. "We're the Guardians," Jack said, clapping Alex on the shoulder. "Submariners aren't for everyone. It takes a certain kind who craves the challenge." That first night, Alex didn't sleep. He lay in the dark, staring up at nothing, thinking of his fiancée Emma back in Seattle, her warm smile and hazel eyes vivid in his mind. Contact with the outside world? Only rare, heavily screened emails. "Write nothing that could give us away," Captain Reed had warned during the brief. "We carry nuclear missiles, part of the triad. One wrong move and the world burns." Dread grew heavier with every meter of depth. This boat wasn't just a ship, it was a floating arsenal that could rewrite history. Alex rolled onto his side, trying to force sleep, but fear whispered, "What if something goes wrong? A leak, an enemy contact?" The excitement of the journey faded beneath the crushing reality. This was no adventure novel. It was life on the razor's edge, where confinement and isolation tested a man's soul. As the boat leveled off at patrol depth, pressure gauges steadied. Alex reported for his first watch in the control room, where screens glowed green and sonar sang their quiet songs of the deep. Awe washed over him at the technology that could find a needle in the ocean's haystack. Yet the fear never left, a premonition that the nameless monster outside could swallow them whole at any moment. Jack passed by and nodded. "Hang in there, Boot. First week's hell, but then it becomes life." Alex managed a tight smile, but inside a storm raged. Fear of the unknown, joy at belonging to this brotherhood, wonder at the sheer power of the machine that now imprisoned him. It was only the beginning, the descent into the nameless deep, where every day would be a trial.
A month had passed. The boat was no longer just a vessel. It had become its own planet, with its own time, smells, and unforgiving laws. Sunlight, wind, rain, all of it had turned into myth, the kind old-timers told new guys so they wouldn't lose their minds. Alex Harper was no longer the wide-eyed lieutenant who had walked down the brow in Norfolk. His eyes had sunk deeper. A reddish stubble had broken through, the submariner's privilege, and his movements had become precise, economical, like everyone else who had learned not to bump into another human being in passageways barely 70 centimeters wide. Control room, the brain of the boat, had become his second home. Perpetual half-darkness, the green glow of screens, the steady hum of blowers. Senior sonar operator Lisa Wong, a 32-year-old woman with a sharp black bang and eyes that could burn through steel, was teaching him to read the ocean. "Don't just listen with your ears, listen with your gut," she'd say, pressing her palm to her stomach. "When it goes cold in here, someone's close." Lisa was on her third straight patrol, almost 3 years underwater with only brief breaks on the beach. Her 6-year-old daughter knew her mother mostly from photographs and the rare, heavily vetted letter. In the passageways, an endless ballet of survival played out. Men and women moved in a rehearsed choreography. Flatten against the bulkhead, let the other pass, slide sideways, don't elbow a pipe, don't step on a foot. Once a brand new seaman, still clumsy, crashed straight into Chief Morales. Jack grabbed him by the collar and growled, soft and almost affectionate. "Do that again and you'll sleep in torpedo berthing with the fish. Plenty of room down there." Everyone laughed, but it was the nervous kind, because everyone knew, when bunks ran short, people really did sleep in the torpedo room. Food had become religion. Culinary specialist Tony Rivera, a short Puerto Rican with a Virgin Mary tattoo on his forearm, ruled the galley like a king. 4 meals a day because watches rotated every 8 hours, and the concepts of day and night simply ceased to exist. Pancakes at 3 in the morning meant morning. Leftover pizza at noon meant midnight. Cans of tomato sauce and tuna lived under mattresses. Eggs sat in boxes in the showers, surrounded by ice packs from the escape trunks. When the boat lurched hard in a deep current at 400 meters, Tony caught a pot of boiling sauce mid-air, burned his hand, but didn't spill a drop. "Anticipate the motion, boys," he shouted, gritting through the pain. Later, when everyone had gone, he leaned against the bulkhead and exhaled, "Damn, almost gave us the tomato apocalypse." Free time was pure luxury. In the cramped cruise mess, 4 tables and an old projector, people gathered to play cards, watch movies, or just sit in silence together. Jack Morales organized a Texas Hold'em tournament.
Steaks, packs of gum, contraband cigarettes, an extra 5 minutes of shower time. To his own surprise, Alex cleaned out the chief and walked away with 3 packs of Orbit. For the first time in a month, he laughed out loud, a real boyish laugh that startled even him. Showers were 3 minutes per man, Navy style. Wet, soap, rinse. Water was worth its weight in gold. The boat's senior enlisted, Master Chief Bob Stinky Davis, prowled the compartments with the nose of a bloodhound. Smell bad and you shower in front of everybody, he'd thunder. One day he caught a young kid. The port eye turned crimson while the whole berthing area counted the seconds allowed. Officers lived only slightly better. 3 to a stateroom, fold-down sinks, tiny desks. Alex envied them in silence. At night, in his coffin rack, he could hear someone whispering his wife's name behind the curtain, someone else stifling sobs in his sleep, someone breathing hard as if the air might run out. Time had lost all meaning. They navigated by meals and by the exhaustion in one another's eyes. Then came the letter for Lisa. It arrived on an ordinary day while the boat cruised at 350 meters somewhere between Hawaii and Guam. The communications officer handed her the printout. She read it and her face froze. Daughter in the hospital, pneumonia, fever of 104. She crushed the paper in her fist until it tore. Her eyes stayed dry. We can't surface, she said quietly, almost to herself. Mission first. Then she walked back to her watch station. Alex watched her go and for the first time understood what real pain felt like underwater. When you can't scream, can't cry, can't run. All you can do is clench your teeth and keep moving. That night he wrote a letter to Emma that might go out in a week or a month or never. I'm alive. I love you. If anything happens, know that I'm happy I was here. It's terrifying, but this is living. Kisses. Alex. He sealed the envelope, handed it to the comms officer, and for the first time in a long while, fell asleep without dreams.
The second month submerged had erased the last traces of shore time. Skin turned pale, almost translucent. Eyes adjusted to the red glow of night lighting. The boat moved in absolute silence at 480 meters, where external pressure exceeded 40 atmospheres. This was a standard nuclear deterrence patrol. Remain invisible, remain ready. Be the final argument of peace. Alex was on watch, in control with Lisa Wong. The ship's clock read 0317, but that meant nothing anymore. A new trace appeared on the sonar waterfall display. A thin, razor-sharp line running parallel at 20 miles. Lisa froze. That's not a whale, she whispered. Her fingers flew across the panel, tightening the filters. Someone's trailing us. Very quiet, very smart. The room seemed to drop 2 degrees, though the air temperature never changed. Captain Reed ordered ultra-quiet. Every non-essential system shut down. Crew walked in socks, spoke in whispers, even breathed more shallowly. All external communications ceased completely. No letters, no signals. A single burst transmission could betray them. The submarine became a black hole in the middle of the ocean. In the torpedo room, where men usually slept crammed between Mark 48s, it was now tighter than ever. Extra bunks had been rigged for off-going watch sections. Alex helped check the weapons launch consoles. The red ready indicators glowed steadily like angry eyes. Jack Morales, standing beside him, spoke softly to a new sailor. Remember when you thought it was cramped? This is cramped for real. If we have to shoot, we'll do it in 30 seconds flat. Then we pray we don't have to. His voice was calm, but the knuckles gripping the rail had gone white. That same evening, if anything without sun could be called evening, the first real emergency struck. In the galley, Tony Rivera was cutting frozen beef with an electric saw. The boat suddenly banked hard onto a new evasion course and rolled 10 degrees. The blade slipped and plunged 7 centimeters into Tony's forearm. Blood sprayed across the tile. Sarah Kane, the boat's only medical provider, arrived within a minute. Table now. Blood was already pooling on the deck. The officer's wardroom dining table became an operating table. Sarah worked under red lights. Tourniquet, lidocaine, 3-0 suture to close the artery. Tony joked through clenched teeth. Now I'll have a cooler scar than Jack. But when the anesthetic wore off, he screamed into his pillow so as not to break silence. The entire crew knew the rule. No loud noises. The enemy was listening. The next day, during another sharp evasion turn, Lisa slammed her head against a frame. The impact was so hard it left blood on the bulkhead.
Sarah put 8 stitches in right there in the passageway. The sick bay was too far. Lisa refused painkillers. I don't want to be foggy on watch. She returned to her sonar stack with a bandage on her head and kept listening to the ocean. Alex saw her hands tremble, but the waterfall line stayed perfectly steady. She never missed a beat. Nights grew heavier. In their coffin racks, men lay listening to the hull groaning under the pressure. Every creak sounded like a death knell. Someone started praying aloud. Master Chief Davis walked through berthing and said quietly but firmly, "Prayers inside your head, shipmates. Sound carries." The silence grew even thicker. Alex wrote a letter to Emma he might never send. "If we don't make it back, know this. I have no regrets. Down here I finally understood what it means to be truly alive. Fear burns away everything unnecessary. All that's left is love. For you, and for these people. If the worst happens, I'll go with your name on my lips." He tucked the letter into his personal drawer beneath the mattress, next to the photo of Emma in a bikini on Lake Erie. Then he lay down and, for the first time in weeks, cried, quietly, so no one would hear. The tears tasted as salty as the ocean around them. The shadow of the enemy submarine still hung over them, unseen but palpable. They moved through the darkness, holding their breath, like animals deep in a burrow. And every soul aboard knew, tomorrow might be their last.
Third month. Depth 620 meters, the absolute limit of an Ohio-class hull. The boat was running at the razor's edge of stealth, and it felt as though even a heartbeat might be too loud. At 4:11 ship's time, sonar finally classified the contact, a Cooler 3, Russian Project 971, a hunter-killer built specifically to stalk them. She was 10 miles astern and closing, slow, patient, relentless. Captain Reed gave the order that turned every stomach to ice. Take her deeper, to test depth. We break contact by any means necessary. The hull groaned. Metal let out a low, mournful howl as if protesting the weight of the entire Pacific pressing down. External pressure climbed to 62 atmospheres. In control, the depth gauge needle trembled against the red line. Lisa Wong sat, white as paper, fresh blood soaking through the bandage on her head, but she never looked away from her screen. He's still back there, running at his limit too, not giving up. And then the thing they feared most happened. In compartment 4, right beside the reactor space, a coolant line ruptured. A hairline crack in a valve, metal fatigue after 3 straight months of continuous running. Superheated steam at 150 atmospheres screamed out, scalding everything in its path. Temperature in the space shot to 80 degrees Celsius in 10 seconds. 2 sailors suffered third-degree burns, 1 collapsed unconscious from the steam. Casualty in engineering, dog the hatches, evacuate. Jack Morales' voice cut through the chaos. Alex and Sarah Kane raced down the ladder. Water was already jetting from the break, mixing with blinding steam. The deck was slick with blood and condensate. 19-year-old Ryan from Alabama was screaming so hard it sounded like his lungs were tearing. Sarah jammed morphine straight through his coveralls without even pulling the sleeve up. Alex and Jack dragged the second man, torso scalded raw, down the narrow passageway. Skin hung in strips. The stench of burned flesh filled the air. In the crew's mess, now an improvised sickbay, Tony Rivera, one arm still in a sling, stood at the grill flipping steaks. "Last supper, boys. If we're going out, we go out full." He was smiling, but his eyes were glassy. Nobody turned it down. They ate standing because there was nowhere to sit. Ice cream melted in the bowls faster than anyone could eat it. Lisa received her letter while the boat lay on the bottom at 680 meters, playing dead. "Sweetheart, Sophie is out of ICU. She keeps asking when mommy's coming home." Lisa read it, pressed the paper to her chest, and cried. For the first time in the entire patrol. Silently, so as not to make a sound. Tears rolled down her cheeks and dripped onto the deck plates. No one looked at her. Everyone suddenly found something critical to do elsewhere. That was the deepest respect the crew could offer. Captain Reed gathered the officers in the wardroom. His voice was steady, but his hands shook as he held his coffee mug. "We've got 2 options. 1, stay on the bottom another week until air runs low and the battery dies. 2, come shallow to periscope depth, fix the valve, and risk being heard.
My call. We're taking option 2. We are not dying down here like rats. At 2:47, the boat began her slow ascent. Every 10 meters, the hull cracked and popped like it might tear itself apart. At periscope depth, they cracked the antenna hatch. For the first time in 104 days, fresh air, cold, salty, alive, flooded in. Alex stood at the ladder and breathed it like a junkie taking his first hit. Tears ran without permission. Repairs took 6 hours under cover of darkness, rain, and heavy seas. The Akula lost the scent and turned north. When the boat slid back into the deep, no one spoke. There were no cheers, no hugs, just exhausted looks and the shared, unspoken knowledge that they had just crawled back from the other side. That night, Alex pulled out the letter to Emma he had never sent and added a single line. I have seen hell, and I walked out of it. Now I know what it means to be alive.
Day 120. The boat entered San Diego Bay at dawn on March 14, 2026. The sun rose over the mountains, huge, orange, unreal. It struck their eyes so hard that grown men squinted and cried without shame. Alex Harper stood on the bridge in dress whites issued only the day before, crisp shirt, black tie, beard neatly trimmed in the shipboard barbershop they'd opened 2 days before coming home. On his chest gleamed brand new silver dolphins, a submariner's badge still bright, untouched by salt. He had gained 12 pounds on patrol. His face had filled out, but his eyes were old, eyes that had watched steel scream, watched men stay silent when they wanted to scream, watched blood run across the wardroom tile. The pier was a riot of people, families, a band, flags, television crews. Alex spotted Emma instantly. She stood in the front row wearing the yellow dress he remembered from their last leave on Lake Erie, hair longer now. White lilies clutched in her hands. When the brow dropped, she ran. He walked on the steps, counting them like he used to count the stairs in his childhood home. 1, 2, 3. On the 10th, she reached him. He wrapped her in his arms so hard he heard her ribs creak. She smelled of sunlight, perfume, and home. I'm home, he whispered into her hair, and for the first time in 4 months, cried openly, loudly, hiding nothing. Jack Morales passed by and slapped him on the back hard enough to stagger him. You're one of us now, Lieutenant, forever. Jack held his little daughter in his arms for the first time in her life. The girl stared up at him with huge eyes and asked softly, Daddy, why do you smell like metal? Lisa Wong stood a little apart. Sophie came running shouting, Mommy, loud enough for the whole pier to hear. Lisa dropped to her knees right there in dress uniform and hugged her daughter as if she might vanish. Tears carved clean tracks down her sun-bronzed cheeks. She looked up at Alex over Sophie's shoulder and smiled, the first real living smile he had ever seen from her. Tony Riveri carried his wife and all 3 kids in his arms. He had lost 20 pounds, his arm still in a sling, but he grinned wider than anyone. Home, boys, real steaks are waiting, grilled with real smoke. Captain Reed came last. A Legion of Merit had been pinned to his chest right on the sail. He saluted the flag, then turned to the crew and said simply, We're back. Every single one of us. Thank you. His voice cracked only on the final word. That evening there was a reception at the officers' club. Music, champagne, toasts. When the room grew too warm, Alex stepped out onto the balcony. The sun was sinking into the Pacific, painting the water blood red and gold. He pulled the letter to Emma from his pocket, the one he had never sent, folded 4 times. He read the last line he'd added after the casualty. I have seen hell, and I walked out of it. Now I know what it means to be alive. Then he tore the paper into tiny pieces and let the wind take them. White scraps fluttered away over the bay like small birds. Emma came up behind him and wrapped her arms around his waist. She said, You're different. Yes, he answered. Part of me stayed down there, but the best part is here, with you. They stood in silence and watched the sun drown in an ocean that was for once only beautiful, no longer deadly. The next day, Alex returned to the pier alone. The Ohio lay alongside, massive and black, already preparing for her next patrol. He placed his palm against the cold steel hull and whispered, Thank you, sister. You taught me how to live. Then he turned and walked to the car where Emma waited. He didn't look back. The deep had let him go. But he knew, if it ever called again, he would answer. Because now he was one of them, forever.